The easiest workflow now is you have a 3D model. So you either generate one with us or you upload your own. And then in a few minutes, we'll generate a rig for that asset. We have a 7-step machine learning pipeline we've been working on for over 5 years. What makes us different from Mixamo and others in the market is that we do everything. We do scorpions, insects, birds, hedgehogs, hippos, all sorts.
Welcome to a new episode of XR and AI Spotlight, the show that gives the stage to the founders and makers pushing the boundaries of XR and AI. My name is Gabriele Romagnoli, I'm your host, and I'm here today with Gordon Midwood. Gordon is the co-founder of Anything World, a startup that wants to make everyone a 3D content creator using AI. One of the things that makes them different from many other startups trying desperately to crack the code is their focus on animations and the fact that their technology is available for basically everything: Blender, Maya, Unreal, Roblox, and even in Discord. But is AI good enough to support professional workflows? What can you really do with these animated models? In this conversation, we will discuss how the narrative around AI-enabled workflow has changed over the years.
At the time, people were like, who needs this? This is a gimmick. Who's going to create with their voice? Who's going to create with a text prompt? Now, everybody from Unity to Roblox to Microsoft is like, of course, we take with the prompt. It's a different world now than it was then, but we've kind of followed the journey and had animation as our focus throughout that time. And the fastest growing segment is actually in animation. So hobbyists and professionalists, animators and modelers, and I know some of the bigger animation studios are looking at this kind of technology.
What are some innovative game ideas made possible by generating assets at runtime?
We have two main uses of Anything World. One is our libraries of assets, and that's really useful for real-time stuff. An example there would be, there's a game called Word Warrior on Steam. You know, write a 7-letter word starting with U, and you type in umbrella and it comes there, or any word starting with A, you can type in ant or aardvark. So using our libraries of pre-animated assets at runtime to make games and user-generated content is one way that people use us.
Why AI should be seen by creative as an opportunity instead of a threat.
AI seems to be the new thing to hate. We see it as like creative tooling. If what we do in particular take away the pain of rigging, then you can focus more on your bespoke animations, focus more on your XR experience, the interactions, the game world. And I love seeing innovation in everything, honestly, music, games, film. And at the moment, I think everybody's kind of de-risking. So if this new paradigm shift encourages people to think out of the box and experiment and innovate in the way that we can experience 3D worlds, I'm all for it.
And the team ambitious plan to make Animate Anything the fastest option to rig and animate any character.
That runtime creation and animation of assets is very interesting for us at Anything World, right? It's about like 3 to 5 minutes to rig and animate a 3D model on average at the moment. We're trying to bring that sub 1 minute by the end of this year. We're trying to bring that to like 10, 20 seconds next year.
But before we get into it, I wanted to thank our sponsor Meshy, who made this episode possible. Meshy is a real powerhouse for generating 3D assets with AI. You can start with a simple text or image prompt and get high-quality, stylized 3D models in just a minute. There are two features that completely blew my mind. One is the ability to create stylized texture for any mesh, with or without UV. And the other is the ability to edit portions of AI-generated textures like in Midjourney in Painting. The team has been pushing continuous updates, improving significantly the geometry and texture quality, and I strongly encourage you to visit meshy.ai and check out the generous free plan. After that, make sure to use the code XRAI20 to get a 20% discount on your subscription. And now it's time to roll the title and welcome Gordon under the spotlight. Gordon, it's a real pleasure to have you here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
So, Gordon, we had a rigging, skinning solution like Mixamo in the past, and for a while, I have to say, right? What is that makes Animate Anything different?
So yeah, Anything World brings 3D models to life using machine learning, using AI. And what makes us different from Mixamo and others in the market is that we do everything. We do scorpions, insects, birds, hedgehogs, hippos, all sorts. So we started 5 years ago and we set ourselves the challenge of, can we bring anything to life? That's why we're Anything World. So yeah, we do everything. We automatically rig and animate everything in theory. So yeah, we're not just focused on bipedal humans, which Mixamo and a lot of our competitors are.
So this means also I've seen spiders, snakes, and are these all organic? Like, what is the freedom and the variability that people can get when looking at different kind of characters, let's say?
Yeah, I mean, so we have a 7-step machine learning pipeline we've been working on for over 5 years. And the first step is classification. So at the moment, we need to understand what your model is. So you go to our site, to Anything World, and you upload something. If we can understand what it is, then we generate a rig for it. If we don't understand from the vertices, from the points of the 3D model what it is, or it doesn't fit into a type, we'll suggest put it to an adjacent type, or we won't animate it. So that's the first step in what we do. So yeah, classification is important for us. We're making it more flexible, and we generate then rigs according to the shape that you give us. So for example, if you give us a human with 3 fingers, we'll rig 3 fingers, no fingers, etc. A long tail and a squirrel will do a long tail. So it's not forcing a rig to the nearest shape. It's analyzing the vertices and then matching a rig to the shape for that kind of object.
So, and there is one element of this that is, of course, the rigging and the skinning of the models, right? But to make, let's say, something come alive, let's say from digital content, the path and the journey is much broader. So I want to know how Animate Anything does it, but maybe before we get into it, can you share a little bit about what's the current landscape, right, in terms of other tools and how that is a tough challenge it's been approached by the market, by other product, by teams?
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely relevant to XR as well. I mean, maybe if I start with our journey, how we got started, myself and my co-founder. My co-founder, Seb, is actually a street artist by the name of Ronzo. So he does, if you're anywhere in East London, you'll probably see some of his stuff. He does sculptures, he does character designs. We used to work together at a tech agency in Old Street in London, making games for like Red Bull, Bex, Facebook, people like that. And I became friends with him immediately, recognized he's a super talented graphic designer, character designer. Myself, more of a geek game designer programmer, not very good programmer guy. So we came together to make indie games, basically. Him as the visual guy and me as the game designer programmer in Unity predominantly. But we didn't know, and we still don't really know, to be honest with you, between the two of us, how to model, rig, or animate 3D assets. So we used to work with a really cool company up in Sheffield, in the north of England, called 1024. Hopefully they're still going. Super talented guys, a bit cheaper because they're based in the north. But we'd have, for our PlayStation game or mobile game, we'd have 20 3D models and 3 animations on each of them. And we couldn't afford to make changes. And it was always a frustration for us for our creative vision of what we want to make, that we were limited by a limited set of models. This was 5 years ago. The landscape has changed a lot since then. But yeah, that was always our vision, is like when we saw the rise of Google Poly, which is now gone, but we've taken all the models. Thanks very much, Google Poly. Sketchfab, now Fab, Objiverse. We saw these open source or Creative Commons remixable 3D assets coming up. And we thought, what if we can make it easy to access those and bring those to life and allow people to create what we called limitless 3D worlds, animated 3D worlds. So that was the impetus for why we started Anything World, to solve our own problem of being no good at 3D modeling or animation. And as we progressed, we started actually in Unity with some really janky like physics, weights and joint systems that worked to an extent, but it was just interesting because you could ask for anything and it will come alive. Sometimes things exploded and things went all over the place. We have exploding kangaroos and stuff. One day we'll publish a bunch of GIFs of like crazy experiments at the start. We managed to be able to do that, to understand what something is and bring it to life in a crude way. As we've developed over time, we've been able to rig and animate assets in a more traditional, high quality way over the course of 5 years. And in those 5 years, and I'll overview the landscape. If you need me to stop, you can make one of the bases. But like over those 5 years, the landscape's changed just crazy. Back in 2019, we did text and voice-based generation of 3D worlds. That was libraries of assets that we put through our animation pipeline and just simple API calls in Unity to say, make an underwater world with 20 sharks as one of our favorites. We generate the environment, add the objects, and that would be that. At the time, people were like, who needs this? This is a gimmick. Who's going to create with their voice? Who's going to create with a text prompt? We forget like 5 years ago was a whole different environment. Now, everybody from Unity to Roblox to Microsoft is like, of course, we take with the prompt. And obviously, we have the rise of AI, like Gen AI now with Midjourney and others. So yeah, the world has definitely shifted in that time. And we're seeing also now the rise of 3D model generation as well. Luma, Meshy, and all those guys, and Meta, and everybody coming for that. So it's a different world now than it was then. But we've kind of followed the journey and had animation as our focus throughout that time. I don't know if I answered your question or I just rambled about the past there.
No. I think it makes sense to position us where things have moved on, and as how an idea that was kind of like, who needs that now is everybody in a way looking into how to do it. So the first question one thing I want to understand is you rig and skin, right? But what do you expect to do afterward? So let's imagine it's an indie studio. Let's put us in an indie studio setting. We are maybe 5-6 people, right? Do you expect people to still animate their characters? Is the skinning and the rigging good enough so that an animator can animate them themselves? Do you expect people to type what is their animation like? Shooting, idle, falling, and then putting it further into the Unity? What's the idea? What happened next?
Yeah, great question. So the sample work, the easiest workflow now is you have a 3D model, or you can generate one on our site. We're the only place you can generate Rig and Animate. So you either generate one with us or you upload your own. And then in a few minutes, we'll generate a rig for that asset, as long as we can understand it, and we'll map animations onto it. So let's say it's, I don't know, let's say it's a dog. You upload it, it rigs the dog fine with the tail and the legs and everything, and we will apply around 6 animations to it. I think we have run, walk, jump, sniffs, a few others. So in 5 minutes, you'll have a rigged and animated dog of a high quality with 5 animations on it. Once you've done that, let's assume you do it through our website. You can pick that up natively through our plugins in Unity and Unreal. So you'll have like my animated models there. If you have our plugin installed, you can drag those into a scene and they'll start running around. You can call them with code in Unity as well. So that's one workflow, is get your models rigged and animated very quickly rather than days in a few minutes, and then pick them up in Unity or Unreal. You can also download them as FBX and all kinds of formats, bring them into Blender, add your own animations on top. We're adding control rigs right now because we have a lot of demand for that kind of use case, as in, I want to get my creature rigged quickly, and then I want to add my own animations on top. So control rigs is an important step there. So we're trying to provide different utilities for everybody creating and animating 3D assets, taking away the pain of rigging in particular, but also animation. So there's kind of different workflows. We have APIs as well. So if you have 1,000 models, you want to get rigged and animated, you can fire them off via a Python package or any other code, get them rigged and animated, and get them back like sight unseen a few minutes later. So we try to be everywhere that people are creating 3D content, and we're in Unity, Unreal, Roblox newly. Blender has been a very successful integration for us. Anywhere 3D content's being created, we're trying to bring our animation service and get it rigged and animated quickly. And then, of course, there's humans in the loop to finesse the animations, to bring more logic in, to create the game or create the XR experience on top of that as well.
Right. So, and just to be clear, this means that there isn't a slider saying run faster
Right.
or... Right. So it is something that the character is animation ready, so to say. If you want, there is a standard animation that is put in there that is relevant to a quadrupedal or maybe a snake, right? Or maybe something that is relevant to that specific character. But then it's up to the studio, it's up to the animators to take it to the next level, or just deal with the looping animation about walking, idling, or whatever is provided by anything animated.
Yeah, so it's that is the situation currently, but it's an interesting area. So, if you add a human, you get 50 animations. You can use any of them. You can bring it into Blender or something, add your own on top. You can also call it in with code. You can also call it in a runtime. I know we're going to talk about runtime in a minute. But what's upcoming and what a lot of people are going for, which you're hinting at, is synthetic animation generation. So via a prompt, make the dog walk and then sniff a bucket and then fall over. So we are working on that, and hopefully we'll introduce that next year. We haven't seen anybody do that to a production level quality. And because we, in our background, we are game makers, we are creators, we want to make sure everything's usable and it's not a theoretical exercise. The ones that we've seen do that are mocap libraries that are heavily marked up. It's more animation mixing than genuine animation generation. The genuine animation generation we've seen from prompts, unless we're missing some, isn't quite usable yet. But we want to be the first to do that. So you can do exactly what you say. You rigged your dog, make it run and then crouch and then sniff and then jump and then sit on a table. We want to create that next. Yeah. We don't have it yet. And then we have a range of animations you can use or adapt or make your own.
So you mentioned something important about something being usable, right? And so maybe can you give us an example of how the models that are currently rigged and animated with anything word are used? Like if there is a pie chart, imaginary, how are they used? Can you unpack that for us?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So we have two main uses of anything world. One is our libraries of assets. So that's stuff that we've taken from Fab, lots of other Objaverse, lots of other libraries, which is community created assets, which you have to attribute on a Creative Commons license. Somebody's uploaded something, said it's free, you can use it. We'll animate it, add it to our library, and we'll correctly attribute the author, which of course is very important, especially in these days of Gen AI when there's a bit of theft going on. So yeah, that's one way that people use us. And that's really useful for real-time stuff, for user-generated content. An example there would be, there's a game called Word Warrior on Steam from Choice Provisions that they built on our system. I don't know if you remember, if you're as old as me, if you remember a game called Typing of the Dead Overkill. It was a Sega game, I think, originally on Dreamcast. Like an on-rail zombie game, very cool. You go through like arenas and you type in the keyboard stab or attack or behead or whatever it is, some violent thing, and it kills a zombie. They made a version of that powered by anything world whereby write a 7-letter word starting with U and you type in umbrella and it comes there, or any word starting with A, you can type in ant or aardvark. So using our libraries of pre-animated assets at runtime to make games and user-generated content is one way that people use us. And we've seen a bunch of mobile games, Steam games and stuff like that released using that. The other way that people use us, as the one we've been talking about so far, is they add their own models in and get them rigged and animated. And that is our most popular use case at the moment. What we call Animate Anything is the software. And the fastest growing segment is actually in animation, so a little bit away from gaming. So hobbyists and professionalists, animators and modelers is the fastest growing area. And I know some of the bigger animation studios are looking at this kind of technology, how it can speed things up, what new creative possibilities there are. So yeah.
So regarding that second, I think we should dive into both, to be honest. The first question is probably related to the second that came to mind. So you're talking about animating a character that then is used, for example, to create a CGI scene or like a commercial. Like, what's being done with these 3D animated models for, let's say, content production that is not a video game, as I understand?
Yeah, it's early days in that, but there are people that use the 3D models for socials, cut out the background, put it on top of stuff. We're also talking to TikTok. We'd love to integrate with Effects House, for example, generate and animate models and put them on top. I think we'll see in that marketing and social area a lot more usage of 3D environments. It would seem logical to me. Video is done, subtitles are done, AI effects, we see them all the time in CapCut and stuff like that. So generating 3D scenes based on imagery or, automatically captioning with 3D objects as you're voicing stuff over or creating social content is an area we're seeing growing. It's early days there. And yeah, we're talking to the likes of Disney and Universal and stuff about hopefully starting pilot projects with them, but it takes a little while with the larger companies to get things off the ground.
I can imagine. Even though there is another every time that I hear that we discuss about AI generated content, there is always like social media. So it's going to be used because you need quick turnaround, and the user necessarily care that much about the quality. And I think that AI sometimes can be a bit rough around the edges, but the output need to be significantly order of magnitude more than if you make an animated series, right? For example, or whatever that might be. I don't know. What's your take on this? Of using AI to overflood an already flooded pipeline of content that is on our feed, that is on our computer, or I don't know. What's your impression there?
In general, I think personally, I think it's fun. Like I like the AI effects in CapCut, that like the Disney effect of me and my girlfriend is funny, or like I had a photo of me in Costco with a giant teddy bear. They sell those in the UK. They sell like massive teddy bears. And I just put it through the image thing where it zooms back and there's like 1,000 dystopian. I think it's funny personally and easy to create content that way. Not quite an anything world thing yet, but I think, that's more like how we live our lives and how socials and how easy it is to produce content. I think if you're lowering the barrier to content creation and making everyone a content creator, I think that's great. And I think it's fun in general. And we want to bring that to 3D. But, what it does to our brains, why we're constantly consuming content, how easy it is to generate, that's a different issue. That's more of a societal issue. No. Yeah,
absolutely. I agree. And that's the thing, there is always this feeling about that AI can, and I think it will make everybody more creative, because if I don't know how to create 3D model, I can go to animate anything, get a model from Sketchfab, even put it there, rig it, animate it, and having a dance and dance next to it, for example. And I would never be able to do it. Now I can. The other point is instead that looming threat that we're saying, okay, now we don't need that many 3D artists. We don't need that many 3D animator. I don't want to go into the doom projections or whatever, but I just want to. Have you encountered that when you talk with studios, different sizes? What's their reaction there?
Yeah, it's interesting. The reaction to AI, and I'm within the XR community, maybe it's the same. We're very familiar with the indie games community because that's where we came from. Started off in gaming, and that's where we created Anything World. So yeah, there's often like a knee-jerk kind of reaction, definitely to crypto and Web3. There was a big reaction from those scenes, and maybe you're seeing the same. Metaverse was the same. So, and now AI seems to be the new thing to hate. So I mean, I get from a creator communities a backlash, and I get from artists. I think the biggest problem really with Gen AI is plagiarism. I think everybody knows if you can generate a piece of art based on somebody else's art style, then that's obviously stolen. If I can generate a Simpsons style character, where's that been trained? Obviously on Simpsons data. So there's a big problem with plagiarism in Gen AI, which I mean, I think we all 100% accept. Beyond that, I guess what you're talking about is, how many people will lose their jobs? Will it shift things along? I guess we see it as like creative tooling. If we can take away what we do in particular, take away the pain of rigging, then you can focus more on your bespoke animations. You can focus more on your XR experience, the interactions, the game world. So we see it as shifting human creativity like up the chain a bit to the more important stuff. That's not to say that AI and robotics in particular won't take away huge sections of employment in society as a whole. I think it will. And I think that's something we'll need to contend with as a society, like maybe a basic universal income. I know a bunch of people have said that. Maybe that's the way to go. I don't know if service sector will expand so much to take away the jobs that have been lost. But I think in general, AI and in particular robotics will take away a lot of employment and manual employment from people. But is the economy flexible enough that we create then employment in the service industry? Can we shift stuff up the chain? For us and what we're doing, we'd like to think we provide more time for people who are making games to make the mechanics of their games and not spend like 3 days in whatever tool, Maya, rigging and tweaking different bones and weight structures. They can just create something quickly and then add the human finesse on top. I think human craft is something we all appreciate. Human connections we appreciate. When you see like a Disney movie or a Pixar movie or whatever it may be, Disney is Pixar, when you see a really nice animated movie, like what did I see? Something about a robot the other day. It was really good. It was a Universal one, the silent robot or something. But you can tell the craft that's gone into it, from the sound design, from the animation design, and that's humans that have done that. So I don't think we'll be producing like artworks like games and XR apps and animations purely with AI. I don't think humans will want that. But I think it will shift it up the chain and it will affect how people are employed. But I don't know. Maybe it goes back to, the printing press is going to take away jobs. TV is going to take away jobs. Netflix is going to take away, there's always these changes. But AI is a genuine massive shift in what we can do, for sure. So it'd be interesting to see how it plays out. Rambling now, but yeah, it will definitely have effects. What they will be, I don't know. But I guess we need to make sure the society is ready to adapt.
I just wanted to have a quick break to remind you that if you're enjoying this conversation, you should definitely check out the XR AI Spotlight newsletter. By subscribing, you will get weekly interviews like this one directly in your inbox, an app or product I personally have tested and recommend, and access to a list of over 400 mixed reality apps for Quest that you can easily search and filter. Just check the first link in the show description. And now, let's get back to the show. I promise we're going to go back to Anything World specifically, and especially the runtime aspect that I'm curious about. There is one thing that you mentioned, is that I think people don't want that, right? They don't want to see the AI-generated stuff only, right? In terms of that human connection, right? I think that an important aspect there is also that probably people want to know that these things were built by human. Just the fact of knowing, not because at some point the quality it's going to be necessarily different or distinguishable. I think just the fact that you know that there was a human behind making it, and it's valid for everything. I mean, we're talking about animated. It could be a written article, it could be a video, it could be an image. Right. I think just the fact that you are ensured that there was a human behind allows you to build a human connection with the person that made it. And I think that this is something that it's going to be tricky indeed to see how that plays out, because how do you make sure that something is indeed created by a human and so on? So that's going to be always tricky to define and label properly across country, across continents, legislations, and so on. It's going to be a tough challenge, but nonetheless, having the human connection with the creator, I think that is an important aspect.
Yeah, I agree with you, and yeah, I think it was Ben Affleck the other day. An actor was talking about. He was asked the same question about movies. What about when you were replaced with AI? And he said that process of acting, being in a room, having those human connections, understanding each other as human beings will never go away. And I feel that's true. And I think AI, definitely what we're doing, making it easy to rig and animate everything, see us as a tool that gives you a superpower to create more stuff, more interesting stuff, more finesse at the end is how we would see it. Yeah, I don't think we're going to go away as humans in creating art. If we do, we'll have very drab, boring art, and people will reject it.
You mentioned runtime, right? And now that we can generate lightweight assets super fast and be very flexible about it, I think that we are tapping into a new kind of game, into a new kind of experience that were not possible before. What have you seen? How have you seen people using effectively this runtime creation in a way that makes sense?
Yeah, this is a very interesting question. And we get a lot of, whenever we do like a trade show or we do an expo, we get, a lot of people coming to us and saying, yeah, because we have APIs as well that can rig and animate any 3D model as well as using our interfaces. We have a lot of people coming up to us and saying, exactly as you're saying, I've generated a bunch of stuff with Luma or Meshy, and now I want it rigged and animated. I want to create a limitless Roblox where you can create whatever you want. It comes to life and we play in this endless game world. So I think that runtime creation and animation of assets is very interesting for us at Anything World. Right? It's about like 3 to 5 minutes to rig and animate a 3D model on average at the moment. We're trying to bring that sub 1 minute by the end of this year. So we've got a lot of work to do in a month. And we're trying to bring that to like 10, 20 seconds next year. So getting to that almost runtime, almost real time, like rigging an animation of a 3D model is going to be very interesting and crucial for us. If you can just fire a model at us and 10 seconds later, 5 seconds later, get back a fully rigged and animated one with behaviors on as well, because we add behaviors in Unity and Unreal, and that's definitely like a game changer, we feel, in terms of what you can do. And yeah, it'll be a whole new type of gaming. If it's not a fixed environment, if you can create whatever you want and others can add to it and it's real time, and the mind kind of boggles. I do think it's a new paradigm shift in terms of video games in particular, what we'll be able to do.
Yeah, and the question I always ask myself is why? I mean, it's not because something can be done, it doesn't mean that it should be done in a way, right? So I think that there is value, there is potential, but usually people tend to ask for stuff without knowing what they're going to do with it. Right. That's a bit the feeling sometimes. So what are the game mechanics? What is these extra opportunity that is really unlocked when being able to generate 3D animated model with behaviors. So let's, for example, imagine a shark, right? Mm-hmm. It means that shark might go in a certain direction based on what's it's around it, right? So it's not just an animated shark, it's just a shark that has intent or has some simple mechanics behind. Then what?
Well, I mean, it's a paradigm shift. If you really can create anything and have it animated with behaviors like almost instantly, which we're going to be the first to do next year, then it's up to the game designer, the experience designer to take that. We've had some interesting things built on us, like puzzle games would be interesting. Let's say you had, I don't know, something on a boat, or you have to get a polar bear off an ice cap or something like a killer. You create some killer whales and there's 5 of them and they get it off, or there's a helicopter and it rescues it. You can bring in any object animated. If you can generate anything, I think for gaming mechanics, it can be a shift. Imagine you have something to solve and you can solve it in any particular way. If you remember the game Scribblenauts, another old game. Mm-hmm. Remember Scribblenauts? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we used to say, and I haven't mentioned that game for a while, that we were Scribblenauts brought into the modern times, because with us you can create anything, ask for anything, and it will come to life. So yeah, that kind of like puzzling that's not limited to a set of objects or a set of behaviors. Obviously, you have your game rules, and adding anything into a set of game rules makes a very interesting experience. I think most people are not really thinking like that, though. I think they're thinking about multiplayer, real-time worlds, a massive Fortnite, a massive Roblox where you can have your own avatar. You can be a fox. I can be a giraffe. Could be anything. We can customize our houses or bits of land with whatever we want, and we can trade stuff. So, yeah, I guess it's like current platforms and current game mechanics extended massively, and the possibilities there are huge. Now, does anybody want it? Nobody needs it, but who needs entertainment anyway? You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, I think there'll be a lot of fun and a lot of innovation that will come. And I'm excited for innovation to come. I love when we were making games, we made stupid games, dubstep rhythm racing game on iPhone long time ago, underwater papercraft shark game, a driving game about driving on multiple tracks at the same time. So all these silly, like crazy game ideas. And I love seeing innovation in everything, honestly, music, games, film. And at the moment, not to rail too much, I think everybody's kind of de-risking, especially at the larger scale. That's why we've got Beetlejuice 6 and all this stuff. It's because people are a bit risk averse at the moment. So if this new paradigm shift encourages people to think out of the box and experiment and innovate in the way that we can experience 3D worlds, I'm all for it.
Personally. Yeah. I mean, I think you made a good point. It's just the fact of being able to innovate and lower the risk when creating something new. I think that is certainly a huge value. And what do you think right now? It is still no, before we get into that, because I think it's a question for another moment. You are into this 3D and AI space, right? And so I'm pretty sure you know a wide variety of tools and techniques, or maybe workflows that people have used. Is that something maybe you could share with the people around in terms of multiple tools that work well together, or something that you have found particularly useful that people might not know straight away?
I mean, definitely our system works well with avatar systems like Ready Player Me. You can generate your character there, put it in our system, animate it, and you can pick it up in Unity. So from your a photo of you can generate a full body avatar, get it rigged and animated, and pick it up in Unity or Unreal and make a mobile game, in a few minutes. There's definitely, like, we see more and more of those kind of workflows and there are people that you can go from image, even with us, you can go from image to 3D model to animated 3D model. And then you can use something like CapCut to remove the background and put it on your social stuff. So definitely that workflow of nothing to fully animated 3D model is something we want to enable. And there's other tools in the mix. We're not necessarily the place where you have to do everything. But yeah, definitely that. Yeah, avatar creation to animate avatar is an interesting one that we've seen a lot.
And especially if you can be anything and maybe not necessarily a biped or another character, that's the other aspect of it.
Yeah, we haven't enabled that yet for other ones, but that would be funny. Your face on a dog, for example, would be good.
So what I wanted to ask you before is, so there is this path that is evolving and is moving forward. What do you think is still needed to enable more studio, to enable more team to actually adopt this in their workflow?
I mean, it depends on the size of the organization. What we have tended to see over our lifetime is that the smaller independent creators, especially in gaming, just take it and run with it and make kind of crazy experiences. And if there's mistakes at the edge, which there always are with AI, and especially when it's emerging, you embrace that as a kind of like a comedy game, like the Choice Provisions one I told you earlier, or there was Spilt Milk here in the UK made a Picross style puzzle game where they turn like 3D models into 2D Picross puzzles. If you know the game Picross, once you solve it, it unlocks the 3D model with animations. So like all these like interesting game ideas, if it doesn't quite work out, it's okay. So at the smaller scale, I think people are just jumping in and seeing what they can do. Definitely when myself and Seb used to make indie games, we would pick up, particularly from the Unity asset store, anything that saved us time. And if we can save 3 weeks not writing our own controller code, we would drop a few $100s on whatever it was called. I forget the name of that particular asset, but like we picking up assets from the asset store all the time. A shader that does a wireframe effect, I'll get that straight away. I don't want to spend 3 weeks of my time creating, rewriting somebody else's work. So that's kind of how we see ourselves. So definitely those smaller creators have that mentality. Let's get anything world in. Let's rig 50 models. Let's put the animations in. Let's create this, let's use a dog world. Let's create this puppy world super quickly. On the larger scale, I think bigger organizations are a little bit more scared of legal ramifications, and they're a bit slower to adopt AI. They're worried about being hit with anything. And also the gaming studios, the larger ones, can be a little bit slow to adopt new pipelines and new methods, which seems a little bit of a contradiction, because gaming often drives like consumer behavior and it's often at the forefront of innovation. But the larger ones don't really want to disrupt their pipelines too much. Like, no, I have my pipeline. I've done all in C++. I've done it for years, and we know what we're doing. So it's interesting. So it depends on the size and the flexibility and how innovative the organization is the answer to your question. Smaller guys move quicker and can create interesting stuff. The bigger guys need a lot more reassurance and perhaps a lot more high fidelity before they dive in, like whole scale.
So you mentioned two things, right? One, or at least more than two. One being the fidelity of the animation, the rigging, so how accurate it is, and the other is you mentioned that the concern regarding copyrights and so on, right? So are those legitimate? I mean, do you feel that with people using anything, animate anything, it is actually a problem in this specific case when we think about copyright or not?
No. So the core of what we do is we rig and animate 3D models, as I know I've said maybe too many times now, but that is all our own data. So we use public point cloud data. We use models on Fab or other sources that have been labeled as to be allowed for that purpose. So we know our data sources. We know exactly everything is in our system. We haven't taken anything without attribution. If you use 3D models that have been animated by us, they have to be attributed correctly. So in terms of our rigging and animation, we're actually by foresight or by morals or by whatever it is, we know exactly how we animate, how we rig, what data sources we have. It's our own algorithms. That's the core of the company, really, that 7-step machine learning process from static to fully rigged and animated 3D models. So all of that we are in control of, and there's no danger there. The danger comes in the generation side, I think. If you're generating a 3D model somewhere or from an image or an animation, that's where it comes in. Because we've been kind of, sometimes we say we generate to investors, but I guess we are sort of in the middle. We're generating rigs and animations, but we're maybe not as generate as others. So I think the main risk comes in the generation of the asset rather than the animation. Our systems, we know what they are. We know what we're doing. So yeah.
So I think are people, after you explain the way you have trained your model, right? Do you still encounter resistance from the biggest studio? Because that is the point. So you mentioned two key things, and I want to go to the next one afterward. One being the copyright, and the other is the fidelity, the quality, right? Being the copyright, if by explaining this, is that enough, or they still like, oh yeah, whatever, or they don't trust you, or I mean, how's the conversation at that point?
No, I think so. For that, we can be very clear with that. So it's not really a legal. I guess people have busy lives, and they'll have an impression of AI, which is very interesting but risky and could give me a lot of work if I'm at a larger corporation. I'm typecasting somebody who works for a larger corporation. Maybe they don't want any trouble, and they're just like, AI, we stay away from that. So it's more of a general thing than, we've analyzed anything well. We see that you know all your data sources, and we see that there's no issues here with plagiarism, and we're clear to go. It's more like we're a bit wary. And also in the US, there's been protests, and last year there was a bunch in LA outside animation studios about writers' jobs being taken with AI. So people in the larger organizations are a little bit wary in general. So not we looked at anything well as bad. It's a general wariness. But I would say as well, definitely quality is a thing when we talk to the likes of Disney and Paramount and those guys. Improving the quality of our rigs, adding in facial rigging, more bones. As I said, control rigs is a big thing that most animation studios ask us for. They're coming next year. So that'll be very interesting for us. So for us, it's a mixture of general market wariness around AI and what's its implications for the larger organizations and the quality and to a lesser extent, speed of our service.
Right. And you mentioned also that you are maybe not as much as a Gen AI, like you're generating the 3D model, but you have this algorithm that rigs and skin the models, at least until you'll be able to prompt in and add the animation yourself, right? So that we say, for example, walking, limping, or something like this. Not sure that is on immediate pipeline. I didn't want to put words in your mouth that are not necessarily the case.
It is. Yeah, I mentioned it earlier. That synthetic animation generation is very interesting to us. Yeah.
And so in that case, maybe just to understand, how would you train a model to, what kind of data can you use or to create a data set for that?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I guess we're working through that right now. I don't have the answer to that because we're working on it. We haven't got it implemented. But yeah, it's going to be, nobody's really done it that well yet as far as we can see. So we'll have to see. But we have our principles here that we don't, we're not going to trawl the internet for all videos of dogs and not actually, that's not how we work. We have a specific range of implementation. So if this is a type of, I don't know, a short quadruped, we know it behaves like this, and we have animation that's partly manually created, partly from mocap data that we own or is publicly attributable, and then we can remix that. So we have our own principles of how we do stuff, and we're also not NVIDIA. We can't buy our own nuclear power station like Microsoft are doing. We're not one of those big guys. We can't crunch the whole world and make new things. It's a series of specific implementations from understanding 3D models, their structure, how animals and creatures move. So it's more nuanced and small scale than let's get all the text on the internet and put it in a massive foundational model.
So if you could give, let's say, I don't like to call it pitch, but let's say encouragement to people and a small team that maybe they are creating an app, right? It could be an XR app or it could be a mobile game. And they maybe are stuck, right? And they're still on the fence on how to get started. Maybe they don't have the animators. What can you still tell them to reassure them, convince them, or inspire them that actually rigging and skinning and animation is something that now can be done with Animate Anything?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say go to anything.world and try it out. Everyone gets 2 free models rigged and animated a month, and just give it a try. You can generate, rig, and animate. So within like 5 to 10 minutes, you can generate from text or an image a 3D model and get it rigged and animated, and then you can download the animations there, bring them into whatever you like. You own the output, so that you don't have to, and unless it's somebody else's model you've animated, you own that output. You can do whatever you want with it. We don't have any claims over it, so that's your own data. So I would say to them, give it a try. Just go to Anything World, upload a model that you've got to get it rigged and animated, or generate one and rig and animate it. It takes a couple of minutes and see if it fits your purpose, but it's definitely something I think you should try. That's basically what we're trying to do, is lower that barrier to creation. So that was us. We're doing our games. We don't know how to 3D model, rig or animate. We don't know what we're doing. What can we do? How many can we do? 10 animations. This is cool. Can we have changes? It'll be another 2 days. Maybe we can't. But we have to put up with this. So yeah, we wanted to break down that barrier and allow everyone to create animate 3D assets. So yeah, I would just say, go to Anything World, give it a try, and join us on Discord if you have any issues or you want any feedback, you have any feedback or anything like that. And we're very helpful and friendly. So we'll help you if you need it.
Awesome. Gordon, thank you very much. So go to Animate Anything World. Try also the API, because it's always another interesting thing of thinking about this, and it's not necessarily this asynchronous kind of creating and bring it in. So unlocking many opportunities. So Gordon, thank you very much for being with us.
No, thank you for having me. I love the chat.
Thank you very much for listening in. If you like the show, remember to leave a rating on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or a thumbs up on YouTube. It really helps me keep doing this and shine the spotlights on the greatest founders and makers, pushing the boundaries of XR and AI. Also, make sure to check out the show page xraispotlight.com, where you can find more conversation like this one. Till next time.